Welcome to Fortune Forecast. We are heading into the next chapters of the book titled The Heart of the New Thought by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. If you're new to the channel, welcome. You are in my book playlist, and if you would like to catch up on the previous chapter, please do go to the book playlist and you'll have access to that there. And to our Fortune community, welcome back. I'm going to sit here for a minute with a little bit of my narrator's comment. If you want to jump into these next few sections, please go to the description and click on the timestamp. As I've read through these couple chapters, I've picked up an energy about this author, Ella Wheeler Wilcox, and I could see and feel her background in poetry. There's some poetry in the way that she puts her words together. And it seems, by the way that she puts her words together, that she does not tend to dwell on negative things and pessimism. And she's so far in these few chapters really showing us the heart of the new thought. While she does not offer a scientific approach, she is laying this down as common sense as it can come. In the first few sections, she talks about that power of right thinking, and that one must be alive. And then she gives us in just one paragraph all the actions that help the foundation to being alive, to setting forth that right thinking, and the disciplines such as deep breathing, eating moderately, taking cold showers, exercising, and above all, anticipating good health. And she added that it takes time when one decides to initiate a change in one's life. She said, be patient and persistent. And that particular advice was from the chapter titled The Sowing of the Seed. And interesting, I've heard a similar story in the Bible from the parable of the sower, which in some future video I would love to kind of give a condensed version of some of the parables and the deep stories behind them as I see them. And wow, what about that concept of getting rid of old clothes? Have you ever gotten rid of something and actually felt good that it's no longer in your closet, or realized that you haven't worn something in about 5 years? Or the idea that when you wear ragged out clothes, you don't feel quite as great. And making that effort just to get things out of your closet kind of pushes you in a different mindset, doesn't it? I'd like to hear your story on that. And I could feel the sense of her optimism. I connected with it when she was talking in the section of obstacles, where how important it is not to dwell on the circumstances that might seem unfair and unjust or unkind to oneself, and literally not to wait to attain our success because of these restrictions or obstacles, but to absolutely believe in our own God-given power to overcome anything and everything. And I am sure that I know that I look at, my past, and I've seen that I am an overcomer. Sure, while I was going through the challenge, it just felt so heavy, so dark, yet day by day, inch by inch, I got through it, and I am an overcomer. I'm sure when you look at some of the tough times and you're like, man, I didn't know how I did that. Or that was tough. I don't know how we got through it. Yet you did. And I love how she stated, think of yourself as performing miracles with God's aid. That was powerful. And then we get into the next chapter, and she got into something really heavy there, which had to do with, how they have the naysayers. Have you ever heard the naysayers, where here you are trying to get ahead in life, and some of the worst people that drag you down are within your own household, your husband, your siblings, your relatives. And so I like how she said, you either have to put real cotton balls in your ear, or spiritual cotton balls. She follows that up with a statement, something about that you would not permit the dearest person on earth to give you slow poison, would you, if you knew about it? And she lets us sit in the thought by saying, why think it your duty to take mental potions which paralyze your courage and kill your ambition? Hello. Wow, that was great. I'd like to hear your comments on that. If these past chapters have been a precursor of what to come, I am looking forward to the next few chapters. So sit back, enjoy as we head into the next few chapters. The next section is titled Opulence. Do not go through the world talking poverty and asking everyone you deal with to show you special consideration because you are poor and unfortunate. If you do this with an idea of saving a few dollars here and there, you will always have to do it because you're creating poverty conditions by your constant assertions. It is a curious fact that the people who are always demanding consideration in money matters demand the best that is going at the same time. I have known a woman to make a plea for cut prices in a boarding house because she was so poor, yet she wanted the sunniest room and the best location the house afforded. It is the charity patients who make the most complaint of a physician's skill or a nurse's attention. If you cannot afford to do certain things or buy certain objects, don't. But when you decide you must, decide, too, that you will pay the price and make no whining plea of poverty. There are two extremes of people in the world, one as distasteful as the other. One is represented by the man who boasts of the costliness of every possession and invites the whole world to behold his opulence and expenditure. His clothes, his house, his servants, his habits seem no different to the observer from his neighbors, yet, according to his story, they cost 10 times the amount. The other extreme is the man who dresses well, lives well, enjoys all the comforts and pleasures of his associates, yet talks poverty continually and expects the entire community to show him consideration in consequence. Another thing to avoid is the role of the chronically injured person. We all know him. He has a continual grievance. He has been cheated, abused, wronged, insulted, disappointed, and deceived. We wonder how or why he has managed to exist as we listen to the story of his troubles. No one ever treats him fairly, either in business or social life. Everybody's ungrateful, unkind, selfish, and he could not be made to believe that these experiences were of his own making. All of us meet with occasional blows from fate in the form of insults or ingratitude or trickery from an unexpected source. But if we get nothing else but those disappointing experiences from life, we may rest assured the fault lies somewhere in ourselves. We are not sending out the right kind of mental stuff, or we would get better returns. You never can tell what your thoughts will do in bringing you hate or love. For thoughts are things, and their airy wings are swift as a carrier dove. They follow the law of the universe. Each thing must create its kind, and they speed over the track to bring you back whatever went out from your mind. In the main, we must of necessity get from humanity what we give it. If we question our ability to win friends or love, people will also question it. If we doubt our own judgment and discretion in business, others will doubt it, and the shrewd and unprincipled will take the opportunity given by our doubts of ourselves to spring upon us. If in consequence we distrust every person we meet, we create an unwholesome and unfortunate atmosphere about ourselves, which will bring to us the unworthy and deceitful. Stand firm in the universe. Believe in yourself. Believe in others. If you make a mistake, consider it only an incident. If someone wrongs you, cheats, misuses, or insults you, let it pass as one of the lessons you had to learn, but do not imagine that you are selected by fate for only such lessons. Keep wholesome, hopeful, and sympathetic with the world at large, whatever individuals may do. Expect life to use you better every year, and it will not disappoint you in the long run. for life is what we make it. Eternity. Do you know what a wonderfully complicated thing a human being is? Every feature, every portion of your body, every motion you make reflects your mental organization. I know a woman past middle life who has always been on the opposite side of every question discussed in her presence. She was agnostic with the orthodox, reverential with atheist, liberal with the narrow, bigoted with the liberal. Whatever belief anyone expressed on any subject, she invariably took the other extreme. She loved to disagree with her fellow men. It was her pastime. Now, to walk with that woman in silence is merely to carry on a wordless argument. You cannot regulate your steps so they will harmonize with hers. She will be just ahead or just behind you. And if you want to turn to the left, she pulls to the right. A promenade with her is more exhausting than a day's labor. She is not conscious of it and would think anyone very unreasonable and unjust who told her of her peculiarities. I know a woman who all her life has been looking afar for happiness and peace and content, and has never found any of them because she did not look in her own soul. She was a restless girl, and she married, believing in domestic life lay the goal of her dreams. But she was not happy there, and sighed for freedom. She wanted to move and did move once, twice, thrice to different points of the United States. She was discontented with each change. She is today possessed of all comforts and luxuries which life can afford, yet she is the same restless soul. She likes to read, but it is always the book which she does not possess which she craves. If she's in the library with shelves book-filled, she goes into the garret and hunts in old boxes for a book or a paper which has been cast aside. If she is in a picture gallery, she wants to go to the window and look out on the streets. But when she's on the street, it bores her, and she longs to go in the house. If a member of the family is absent, she gets no enjoyment out of the society of those at home. Yet, when that absent one returns, her mind strays elsewhere, seeking some imagined happiness not found here. I wonder if such souls ever find it, even in the spirit realm, or if they go on there seeking and always seeking something just beyond. It is a great gift to learn to enjoy the present, to get all there is out of it, and to think of today as a piece of eternity. Begin now to teach yourself this great art, if you have not thought of it before. To be able to enjoy heaven, one must learn first to enjoy earth. Morning influences. What do you think about the very first thing in the morning? Your thoughts during the first half hour of the morning will greatly influence the entire day. You may not realize this, but it is nevertheless a fact. If you set out with worry and depression and bitterness of soul toward fate or man, you are giving the keynote to a day of discords and misfortunes. If you think peace, hope, and happiness, you are sounding a note of harmony and success. The result may not be felt at once, but it will not fail to make itself evident eventually. Control your morning thoughts. You can do it. The first moment on waking, no matter what your mood, say to yourself, I will get all the comfort and pleasure possible out of this day, and I will do something to add the measure of the world's happiness or well-being. I will control myself when tempted to be irritable or unhappy. I will look for the bright side of every event. Once you say these things over to yourself in a calm, earnest way, you will begin to feel more cheerful. The worries and troubles of the coming day will seem less colossal. Then say, I shall be given help to meet anything that comes today. Everything will be for the best. I shall succeed in whatever I undertake. I cannot fail. Do not let it discourage you if the moment you leave your room, you encounter a trouble or a disaster. This usually happens. When we make any boast, spiritually or physically, we are put to the test. The occult forces about us are not unlike human beings. When a schoolboy boasts of his strength and he says he can lick any boy in school, he generally gets a chance to prove it. When we declare we are brave enough to overcome any fate, we find our strength put to the test at once. But that is all right. Prove your words to be true. Regard the troubles and cares you encounter as the punching bags of fate given you to develop your spiritual muscle. Go at them with courage and keep to your morning resolve. By and by, the troubles will lessen and you will find yourself master of circumstances. The philosophy of happiness. There are natures born to happiness just as there are born musicians, mechanics, and mathematicians. They are usually children who came into life under right prenatal conditions. That is, children conceived and born in love. The mother who thanks God for the little life she is about to bring to earth gives her child a more blessed endowment than if it were heir to a kingdom or a fortune. As the majority of people, however, born under civilized conditions are unwelcome to their mothers, it is rarely we encounter one who has a birthright of happiness. Youth possesses a certain buoyancy and exhilaration which passes for happiness until the real disposition of the individual asserts itself with the passing of time. Good health and strong vitality are great aids to happiness, yet that they, wealth and honors added, do not produce that much desired state of mind we have but to look about us to observe. One who is not born a musician needs to toil more assiduously to acquire skill in the art, however strong his desire or great his taste, than the natural genius. So the man not endowed with joyous impulses needs to set himself the task of acquiring the habit of happiness. I believe it can be done. To the sad or restless or discontented being, I would say, begin each morning by resolving to find something in the day to enjoy. Look in each experience which comes to you for some grain of happiness. You will be surprised to find how much that has seemed hopelessly disagreeable possesses either an instructive or an amusing side. There is a certain happiness to be found in the most disagreeable duty when you stop to realize that you are getting it out of the way. If it is one of those duties which has the uncomfortable habit of repeating itself continually, you can at least say you are learning patience and perseverance, which are two great virtues and essential to any permanent happiness in life. Do not anticipate the happiness of tomorrow, but discover it in today. Unless you are in the profound depths of some great sorrow, you will find it if you look for it. Think of yourself each morning as an explorer in a new realm. I know a man whose time is gold, and he carefully arranged his plans to take 3 hours for a certain pleasure. He lost his way and missed his pleasure, but was full of exuberant delight over his new experience. I saw places and met with adventures I might have missed my whole life. He was a true philosopher and optimist, and such a man gets the very kernel out of the nut of life. I know a woman who had since her birth every material blessing, health, wealth, position, travel, and a luxurious home. She was forever complaining of the cares and responsibilities of the latter. Finally, she prevailed upon the family to rent the home for a series of years and to live in hotels. Now she goes about posing as a martyr, a homeless woman. It is impossible for such a selfishly perverted nature to know happiness. A child should be taught from its earliest life to find entertainment in every kind of condition or weather. If it hears its elders cursing and bemoaning a rainy day, the child's plastic mind is quick to receive the impression that a rainy day is a disaster. How much better to expatiate in its presence on the blessing of rain, and to teach it the enjoyment of all nature's varying moods, which other young animals feel. Happiness must come from within in order to respond to that which comes from without, just as there must be a musical ear and temperament to enjoy music. Cultivate happiness as an art or science. A worn-out creed. I have a letter from an Orthodox Christian who says the only hope for humanity lies in the old-fashioned religion. Then he proceeds to tell me how carefully he has studied human nature in business, in social life, and in himself, and that he finds it all vile, selfish, sinful. Of course he does, because he studies it from a false and harmful standpoint and looks for the worm of earth and the poor, miserable sinner instead of the divine man. We find what we look for in this world. I have always been looking for the noble qualities in human beings, and I have found them. There are great souls all along the highway of life, and there are great qualities even in the people who seem common and weak to us ordinarily. One of the grandest souls I know is a man who served his term in prison for sins committed while in drink. He was not born bad. He simply drifted into bad company and formed bad habits. He paid the awful penalty of 5 years behind prison bars, but the divine man within him asserted itself, and today I have no friend I feel prouder to call that name. Mr. John L. Tate, Secretary of the Central Howard Association of Chicago, writes me regarding his knowledge of ex-convicts. According to my experience with a number of men of this class during the last 2 years, more than 90% of them are worthy of the most cordial support and assistance. If this can be said of men who have been criminals, surely humanity is not so vile as my Orthodox correspondent would have me believe. A Christian of that order ought to be put under restraint and not allowed to associate with mankind. He carries a moral malaria with him which prisons the air. He suggests evil to minds which have not thought it. He is a dangerous hypnotist while pretending to be a disciple of Christ. The man who believes that all men are vicious, selfish, and immoral is projecting pernicious mind stuff into space, which is as dangerous to the peace of the community as dynamite bombs. The world has been kept back too long by this false, unholy, and blasphemous religion. It is not the religion of Christ. It is the religion of ignorant translators, ignorant readers. Thank God, its supremacy is past. A wholesome and holy religion has taken its place with the intelligent progressive minds of the day, a religion which says, I am all goodness, love, truth, mercy, health. I am a necessary part of God's universe. I am a divine soul, and only good can come through me or to me. God made me, and he could make nothing but goodness and purity and worth. I am the reflection of all his qualities. This is the new religion, yet it is older than the universe. It is God's own thought put into practical form. Common sense. If you are suffering from physical ills, ask yourself if it is not your own fault. There's scarcely one person in 100 who does not overeat or drink. I know an entire family who complain of gastric troubles, yet who keep the coffee pot on continually on the range and drink large quantities of that beverage at least twice a day. No one can be well who does that. Almost every human ailment can be traced to foolish diet. Eat only 2 meals in 24 hours. If you are not engaged in active physical labor, make it 1 meal. Drink 2 or 3 or 4 quarts of milk in intervals during the day to supply good blood to the system. You will thrive upon it, and you will not miss the other 2 meals after the first week. And your ailments will gradually disappear. Meantime, if you are self-supporting, your bank account will increase. Think of the waste of money which goes into indigestible food. It is appalling when you consider it. Heaven speed the time when men and women find out how little money it requires to sustain the body in good health and keep the brain clear and the eye bright. The heavy drinker is today looked upon with pity and scorn. The time will come when the heavy eater will be similarly regarded. Once find the delight of a simple diet, the benefit to body and mind and purse, and life will assume new interest, and toil will be robbed of its drudgery, for it will cease to be a mere matter of toiling for a bare existence. Again, are you unhappy? Stop and ask yourself why. If you have a great sorrow, time will be your consoler, and there is an ennobling and enriching effect of sorrow well borne. It is the education of the soul. But if you are unhappy over petty worries and trials, you are wearing yourself to no avail. And if you are allowing small things to irritate and harass you and to spoil the beautiful days for you, take yourself in hand and change your ways. You can do it if you choose. It is pitiful to observe what sort of troubles most unhappy people are afflicted with. I have seen a beautiful young woman grow care-lined and faded just from imagining she was being slighted or neglected by her acquaintances. Someone nodded coldly to her. Another one spoke superciliously. A third failed to invite her. A fourth did not pay her a call, and so on. Always a grievance to relate until one is prepared to look sympathetic at sight of her. And such petty grievances for this great, good life to be marred by. And all the result of her own disposition. Had she chosen to look for appreciation and attention and goodwill, she would have found it everywhere. Then, about your temper. Is it flying loose over a trifle? Are you making yourself and everyone else wretched if a chair is out of place, or a meal a moment late, or some member of the family's tardy at dinner, or your shoestring is in a tangle, or your collar button mislaid? Do you go to pieces nervously if you are obligated to repeat a remark to someone who did not understand you? I have known a home to be ruined by just such infinitesimal annoyances. It is a habit, like the drug or alcohol habit, this irritability. All you need to do is stop it. Keep your voice from rising, and speak slowly and calmly when you feel yourself giving way to it. Realize how ridiculous and disagreeable you will be if you continue. What an unlovely and hideous old age you are preparing for yourself. And realize that a loose temper is a sign of vulgarity and lack of culture. Think of the value of each day of life, how much it means, and what possibilities of happiness and usefulness it contains if well spent. But if you stuff yourself like an anaconda, dwell on the small worries, and grow angry at the least trifle, you are committing as great and inexcusable a folly as if you flung your furniture and garments and food and fuel into the sea in a spirit of wanton cruelty. You are wasting life for nothing. Every sick, gloomy day you pass is a sin against life. Get health. Be cheerful. keep calm. Clear your mind of every gloomy, selfish, angry, or revengeful thought. Allow no resentment or grudge toward man or fate to stay in your heart overnight. Wake in the morning with a blessing for every living thing on your lips and in your soul. Say to yourself, health, luck, usefulness, success are mine. I claim them. Keep thinking that thought no matter what happens, just as you would put one foot before another if you had a mountain to climb. Keep on, and suddenly you will find you are on the heights, luck beside you. Whoever follows this recipe cannot fail of happiness, good fortune, and a useful life. But saying the words over once and then drifting back to anger, selfishness, revenge, and gloom will do no good. The words must be said over and over, and thought and lived when not said. End of section. Before we move on to the next chapters, please hit that like button. Leave me your comment. Let me know what you like about this chapter. In the next few chapters, we're going to learn about royalty, heredity, invincibility. Join me at the next video.